Hookup Show with your host, Dr. Barbara Young. We are very glad you joined us today. As Christians, we often talk about experiencing God directly in our lives. Well, this show features up-close and personal interviews with men and women from all professions and all walks of life. They will share their stories about unexplainable blessings, extraordinary miracles, healings, and encounters that can only be attributed to a God's hookup. God's Hookup Show will bring joy, hope, enlightenment, and encouragement from the many stories you will hear and may relate to that will inspire you to share your God's hookup story. Make sure to like and share with your family and friends. Now, to my guest today. Well, hello there. How are you? I'm happy to have you, Lisa, on the show today.
Thank you. Hi.
Are you as excited as I am? I'm telling you. I am so excited. I finally got you on the show. We've been talking for a few weeks, and so it is a pleasure to have Lisa Margulis on the show today. And let me just share a little bit about Lisa. She's a registered investment advisor. She's also a transformation coach, and she's the branch manager of the Regatta Capital Group. And we are so pleased to have you on the show today, Lisa. We're going to have a ball, absolutely. But I'm sure that the viewers are going to want to hear your God's hookup story, because truly it is an incredible story. So I want to invite all you listeners to come in and listen, call your friends, tell them you've got to hear Lisa's story today. So Lisa, share with us your God's hookup story. Yay!
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me and giving me an opportunity to share a really profound experience that's really changed my life. I can tell you that I was one person one day and a completely transformed and changed individual the next day. My story begins with the birth of my daughter in 1994. It was a C-section kind of gone wrong. And they didn't stitch me up correctly. So for 2 years, I bled and ended up in a very anemic condition. And on top of that anemic condition, I didn't even know you could get chickenpox twice. So I had chickenpox as a child, but then the neighbor kid had chickenpox. I thought it was okay, but I contracted adult chickenpox in a super anemic condition. That chickenpox virus raged through my body, and finally my uterus hemorrhaged out. I bled to death very, very quickly in the emergency room. And I had a really profound near-death experience. The chickenpox virus hit at the beginning of November, and it took a little while. So it was in the mid to end December, when I finally hemorrhaged out. And that was in 1996. My daughter was 2 years old. That near-death experience was, I'm going to call it my waking up. I transitioned really very quickly out of my body, and I'm guessing this is what people would like to hear, is the actual story. And that transition was so fast. You hear people floating in the emergency room, or they're going into a tunnel of light. Mm-hmm. I just went right to the tunnel of light. I shot through, and when I reached the other side, it was like paisley. I was actually very nauseous as I kind of went from here to there. And that experience was met with the most incredible, the first wave. The first thing is this love, this enveloping. And if I cry and I get emotional, it's as though it happens.
I'll be here with you if you do.
Yeah, because it's never far from me. It's something that is such a profound experience, you can access it quite easily. So as I'm in that moment and they say to me, would you like us to remove our colors? I said, oh, would you please? And they did that. And there was like Q-tips standing in front of me, like white Q-tips standing before me. And they were leaned in and just showering and holding space for me. And I knew right away that I was home, that the experience I just left was away from home, and this was home. And I knew kind of I was raised, in a really defined, this is, heaven or hell or all this. When I got there, I thought, oh, this is heaven. I knew I was in this celestial place, and that my feeling that if I went back, it was the separation would have been that my life up to that point was actually hellacious. I had a very difficult childhood. And so when I reached here and I was at home, it was such a relief and such a natural feeling. And I began to go through my experience, orienting myself, and I really realized, wow, I am who I am. The piece that's I know the me piece, right? I knew I was who I was with or without a body. So that separation, the physical heaviness of this dimension, was released, and it was an amazing sense of freedom. In fact, is all of the concerns, like you don't realize how much your mind is chattering away in the background, that's a real, like an energy drain. And when that stops, there's this amazing clarity, this amazing ease that settles in. And one of the things that I started to wonder is, and it was like a funny little thing to myself, was how does a light beam sit? And I looked down and there was no chair. And in a twinkling, I realized, oh my gosh, this is the memory, third dimension, this experience. I get to take that memory with me. And I just appreciated this life's tactile nature as its own poem, right? There was a poetic understanding that everything that my baby's skin, for example, things like this were flashing through my mind in a very rapid, clean experience. And there was communication. I had 5 different guides with me, and they were holding space, and we were talking. And the talk wasn't like literal kind of language like we're using. This seems slow. It's more like speaking in pictures. It was a picture would be given, and I knew exactly what was flashed, and I could flash back in response. So the very first question, I had 5 choices. The first choice happened very, very close to this beginning. It was, did I want to come back? And I said, oh, yes, I want to come back. There's no question. And so they everybody shuffled in the room, and I was suddenly before a table. And this white table was laid out in front of me, and then 4 little assistants came in, and they put 4 like topographical maps were set in front of me. And there's dialogue all along, and we only have 20 minutes, so I'm going to cut some of it out. But the first map, I could go back to a completely healthy body. And then there would be little lights along the path, and there would be a goal. The second map, I don't really remember exactly what the goal or even the condition was. I just remember when I got to the goal of the third map. Now I'm going to say, growing up, I was molested. I had, a lot of beatings. My mom was mentally, affected. I'm not even sure what her diagnosis. There was never any diagnosis, but she, most of the time, I think if we went through today's psychology, she would be what they call DID, dissociative identity disorder. She was sometimes there and sometimes alter people. So I grew up in a real crazy household, and I ran away, and I tried to get myself squared away, and I met somebody and married and had my own children. But in that moment, I was stopped in my tracks when I looked at the goal of the third map. And the goal of the third map was to volunteer to kill somebody. They needed to do it. And my death was like very proximate. Like I don't know if I was going to kill them, kill myself. I don't know what that story was. But but I looked around. I was like, what is this? Like, what are you even talking about? And um, it, they were very supportive. There was no judgment, no anything. And I was like, wow. And I sat with it for a minute and I said, you'd really have to love somebody a lot to be able to do that. And then my life review snapped in. I mean, my entire life started to play as I realized all these people who persecuted me, that I was, in my victim story, still working through and struggling and trying to find a reason for this life, that they were a stand that I was going to become somebody else. I didn't know it. I would have never, ever reinterpreted it. But as my life review started and I was going through scene after scene after scene, what it meant to forgive, where forgiveness lay, became the overwhelming theme of my experience. To know that the person who was seemingly injurious to me was probably at soul somebody who was very close to me, and that I can look back and, without being attached to this world, right? Because I was there, I was able to let all of that negative story roll off my shoulders. I was actually so deeply touched, and wanted to forgive, to say that this pain that I have, I've got the lesson, I've learned. I want to be free of the entanglement, the psychological entanglement, the idea that I'm powerless. Like, that's not even real. This, when you're in your original self and your whole self, you realize there is no power struggle. That's not what it's about. You are empowered. You are creating the life that you want. How can that be real? And how do you own that and not be at the whim of something happening or being created to you? So as I was going through my life review, and I was watching, and in this, just a string of forgiveness, strings, just forgiving everybody, really realizing that my life, because I had chosen before to come back. So what was I willing to choose to come back? It wasn't just in that magical moment of all the amazing things that I got to bring with me. It was really steeping in, I'm choosing back into a life that there's a lot of drama. There is a lot of pain to embrace being here. We have a long way to go as humanity. And I think at Soul, we're all volunteering to create physical vessels that are going to be loving and to be able to express this kind of love in form. But the good news was, or I wouldn't say the good news, my life review ended and I saw the fourth map. And the fourth map was lit with amazing lights. There's so many covered. And I was watching these lights, and I could, how when you fall in love, like your chest burns in love, right? Mine was on fire. It was just blazing as I just looked at this map, and I knew it was my true heart's desire. And so the little assistants came and they removed the other three maps and they centered this fourth map on the table. And that was going to be my choice. And I'm watching it. I'm in this amazing experience of an all loving, in just fulfilled moment with this little map. And I'm watching the little map, and all of a sudden there's activity. There's little kind of Q-tip guys running in and out of the room, And there's all this activity, and I was just watching it. I didn't know what it meant. But the lights on the path were just twinkling. And after a little period of time, I realized some of the lights were going on. The twinkling was stopping, and then they would just go solid. And at some point, I realized that each light on that path was going to be somebody I get to meet. That the people were running in and out of the room were really, I decided to come back. So I what my feeling was at the time was we were renegotiating contracts to encounter each other. that there would be a gift. Whatever that gift is, there was going to be a gift exchange. And to be able to be in the presence of my daily life. So when I came back, I'll just leap forward. After, because I was sick for 5 years in bed after I came back, so I'll come back to that. But there was this moment after I was well, and I was sitting at a bank, right? So my life ended up serving at Washington Mutual Bank, and I'm sitting at my desk, and the public is coming in, and all of a sudden I realized these are all the lights from my path, that each person was going to come there. They thought they were coming to talk about their checkbook or whatever their financial concern was. That's the thing is never the thing. And so I got seated literally into what is it to keep an appointment. And my life since then is about keeping appointments with people. I'm always looking to see if I meet someone new. Like I knew, to me, we have an agreement to meet. To me, we are here to connect, to exchange something, to share love, to be a bright light in this world, that I'm here to bring light into this world. So I'll back up. After all the lights went solid, we were speaking to each other. I actually got to have conversations with people. I think the most surprising conversation that I had was with my dad, who was still living. I thought that if you were dead, that you weren't here on earth. I didn't know until I had that experience that I could have a conversation with someone else's soul, real time, and that their presence here on earth and their presence there are accessible, that we can deal with each other. And it was a really beautiful thing to have my dad. Part of my story was I got disowned, and my dad and I had reconnected before this, and so there was this amazing, loving experience up in the ethers to know that he's in my soul group and down here with me, which was the other, to really understand. We're not bumping into each other by accident down here, so to speak, down here, right? that these connections here are indicative of a connection elsewhere, and with a higher purpose. And how, like I said, my near death is my awakening into maybe having presence in two different places, and to have forgiveness at a higher level if I feel I'm holding space and somebody's, yelling or having a meltdown. That's not about me. That's whatever they need to go through for them. And I don't need to get up in all of that. But that took me a long time to get to. So I said, I came back to a body that was very sick, and my body ended up having, as a result of the chickenpox virus, no immune system. The virus blew my entire immune system out, and I spent 5 years struggling to fight opportunistic infection after opportunistic infection. My doctors were amazing, and they used all modalities. I had an immunologist who cross-trained in Oriental medicine, in homeopathy. They were both really great at Reiki and introducing energy work. His wife was a Jungian therapist, and I had the most amazing support. And they were also members of a what they call mystery school, and they introduced me to idea like meditation. And in that time while I was in bed, because I was in bed so much of the last of those 5 years, I had plenty of prayer time. I had plenty of time to reflect on my near-death experience. I was in a question like, why did I come back to be in bed? Where was my lights? You see, there was that whole gap where I didn't know why. You're here. And at the end of those 5 years, I was tired of fighting. I wasn't afraid to die. I don't have any fear of death. I'm good to go any day. I live my day one day complete. I put my head on the pillow. I don't have to wake up. I'm good to go. And the time came when I was finished. I didn't want to fight anymore. And I decided to stop all my medications. And I didn't tell my doctor. It just was, I admire you. You move in that moment, right? Well, in this moment, I moved. I followed my inner voice. I followed my calling, and I said, I'm done.
No more medications.
No more medications. And I just stopped eating. I did drink water, so it wasn't just like nothing. I did drink water, and I just went prayerful. I just thought, I'm going to open myself up. Opportunistic infection can have its way. I'm going to surrender to I'm complete. I'm going to surrender to the process. That process spanned exactly 40 days.
How many days?
40.
40 days.
40 days. It was exactly 40 days.
Yep.
Around day 35, when you're fasting and praying and you're going that long and your body is lightening and your soul and you are kind of loosening with each other, things start to happen. And there was some really amazing moments during those original first 30 days. But days 35 to days 40 was really magnificent. I had done a full study and pursued systems. So what was really driving my curiosity during those first 30 days was rapid learning. I was researching cellular respiration, for example.
Well, you, Lisa, have had an incredible experience that not many people will come out and actually share. You and I had this conversation, and you talked about why you didn't share this for a while with people, or a few people that you did sort of didn't understand. But I'm happy today that you were able to be on the show.
Thank you.
And to share people, which will be all over the globe, that there are experiences and that God is in it. And people may not want to acknowledge that, or the creator, but there is a divine being. And you had that experience and come back. And now to be this investment advisor, registered investment advisor, and you're helping people transforming their lives financially, spiritually, and
it's healing, all of it.
And doing all these marvelous works because you decided to come back to a unhealthy body.
Right.
And so this is truly an incredible story. We'll have to have you back for part 2 because there's a lot more to share. But if there was something that you could say to someone out there who they're depressed, they are maybe thinking about, hey, I don't want to stay here anymore because of this pandemic. It's just so depressing. We can't go anywhere. Everywhere in the news, it's about people dying, death around us. What would you say in a sentence to my viewers out there?
Can I recommend a book?
You can.
Okay. So I think the theme of forgiveness, the ability to release pain and suffering for your own self, and to stand responsible for this life. How do you take your power back? You do it by forgiving. There is a book by Mabel Katz called The Easiest Way. And inside of it, that book brought so much language, so much facility, a construction of how we in 21st century can hold forgiveness. And I highly recommend it. It's like maybe takes 2 hours to read. It's very small.
What's the name of the book again, Lisa?
The Easiest Way by Mabel or Mabel, M-A-B-E-L, Katz, K-A-T-Z. And I downloaded. It's an Audible book, as well as
The Easiest Way.
The Easiest Way.
Forgive. And forgiveness is a choice.
It's a choice.
You mentioned that as you came on the show about choices.
Yep.
And you had a choice to either stay or you had a choice to come back. You even had choices that they gave to you with the map. And so I've always had this philosophy for myself that you are where you are because you want to be.
Right.
If you want to be someplace different, you'll choose.
Correct.
You make the choice. And I think the most beautiful thing, and I can say this as I end the show today, that God has given us is free will.
Free will.
That we can exercise our choices. He does not mandate or force us to do anything. It's always your choice.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa, I want to thank you so much for sharing of yourself and really sharing this story. There's a lot more. So we will be back with Lisa for part 2 because she's a lot more, I know, to share. And if you have any questions or any comments, you can get in touch with me at Dr. Barbara Young at, well, I'll find it. Dr. Barbara Young, this is our next shook. So you can get in touch with me at Dr. B at godshookups.com. I'll be happy to, if you'd like to share your story, because there are many stories that are out there. You're welcome to share your story. So don't forget to share with your friends, your family, this incredible story of Miss Lisa Margulis. I got it right. I pronounced it right.
Good job.
It took me a while, but I learned to do it. Margulis.
Margulis, you got it.
I got it, Margulis. And thank you again so much for being on the show today. You have been absolutely wonderful, and thank you so much. I wish you God's blessings. And for all of you out there, I want to say goodbye and have a very blessed weekend as we leave the show today. We're going to just say thank you for tuning in.